Tom Brady stood staring at his feet, hands on his hips, as the final whistle sounded to cement their 21-3 defeat, while reigning MVP Aaron Rodgers lay face down on the grass as the Packers once again failed to mount a good offense. Let's take a look at where the current season seems to have gone wrong for two of the NFL's biggest names, and whether it's time for Brady to finally hang up his jersey. Starting off, another embarrassing outing for Brady and company. It's become abundantly clear this season that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just isn't a good enough team. Their game against the Carolina Panthers was meant to be a redemption game after their abysmal season, but even the great Tom Brady couldn't help the Bucs overcome the 14-0 hole they found themselves in, and they ended up losing 21-3. The entire ordeal was particularly embarrassing considering how poor the Carolina team currently is, and Brady going into the game with his team's 13.5-point favorites. The Panthers had just fired their coach, were an incomplete team after trading their best player, and dropped 12 out of their last 13 games. For crying out loud, the Bucs gave away 22 to a team playing an undrafted quarterback with only 2 touchdowns in his entire career. In a game where the world was expecting to see Brady unleash all his rage from the poor performance against Pittsburgh last week against a team they could not possibly lose to, the Bucs looked worse than they ever have. Moving on, the struggle continues for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If there is light at the end of the tunnel in this nightmare season for the Bucs, it's that they're tied for first, even at 3-4. Honestly, that's more about how bad the NFC South is, but fans are taking what they can get at this point. Despite being down by 14 at halftime in their most recent game, the Mountain wouldn't have felt hopeless if Brady had been playing at his peak, but they could only run the ball 16 times for 46 yards against the 19th ranked defense of a Panthers team that is going through turmoil within its ranks. What's worse, no one was even surprised. The Buccaneer attack has been called a steaming pile of hot garbage this season. Hey, don't take it from us, take it from the numbers. Coming into the 7th week of play, the stats have the Buccaneers at 67.5 yards per game, while rushing, and 3.1 yards per carry. That's the worst rushing unit in the league, but hey, at least they're 30th out of 32 in terms of ground efficiency. Let's talk about the offensive woes for Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. In an equally disappointing, albeit less shocking, game last week, the Green Bay Packers lost their 2nd game in a row. If we could pick one thing the Packers are doing wrong this season, it's their attack. Once more, the problem stems from their inability to properly utilize Aaron Rodgers' skills. The 38-year-old seems uncomfortable on the field and out of sync with his teammates, choosing to abandon the early downfield throws that made him famous for checkdowns and short passes. In the last game, the receivers couldn't land the drops, the running backs only managed 38 rushing yards, and the defense repeatedly failed 3rd down plays down the stretch, and the Green Bay Packers lost the game 23-21. Their 2nd loss in a row has dropped the Packers to a poor 3-4 record, marking the 5th game now where the team just couldn't get an offense going. We can sum up the entire problem with the team within a single play from the Washington game. Packers are down 20-14 on the Commanders' 37-yard line. Rodgers snaps right, looks left, and throws a beautiful ball to Romeo Doubs. The rookie drops it. Maybe it's losing Devontae Adams in the offseason, or maybe it's adapting to younger receivers. But a team of this quality should have worked out the kinks in the preseason months that they had. It's true, Aaron has slipped a little, but it's clear who's holding back who at this point. If this continues, the MVP is probably going to find greener pastures by next season. Now for where did Aaron Rodgers' MVP magic go? Tom isn't the only future Hall of Famer having a terrible season. Aaron Rodgers is struggling with the Packers too. The reigning MVP MVP looks like a completely different player from last season, even if he isn't doing as bad as Brady. Rodgers may have finished 23 out of his 25 passes and racked up 194 passing yards with 2 touchdowns and 0 INTs, but there was no sign of the magical dust that surrounded some of his MVP-winning plays. In his most recent outing for Green Bay, he averaged just 5.5 yards per completion. There was a resignation in his plays as the match progressed, almost like he had decided to reflect the quality of play his team was supporting him, rather than trying to push hard enough for everyone. Head coach for the Packers, Matt LaFleur, noticed the effect the team was having on their star player and said, "It takes everybody around him. You've got to have the protection in front of you to be able to hold up. You've got to have the guys making plays too." Finally, why both stars underperforming is significant for the NFL. Last weekend's event could have effects that last up until next season for both teams. Aaron Rodgers looks pretty frustrated with his teammates and could be looking for a change in scenery. Should he end up in the right team, the effect he could have on their game and the implications for the entire league would be so tremendous that we doubt anyone will be talking about anything else in the offseason. The 38-year-old has been pretty open about wanting to take some time before he makes a final decision about his future with the Green Bay Packers. Brady has shown freakish longevity in his career by playing till 45, but Aaron probably knows he only has a few more solid seasons in him before he has to retire. To that end, there is much for him to gain by shaking things up a little. Fans think Brady should retire for good this time, even if the Bucs manage to improve their form and take his place on the throne as best of all time. Let's take a look at why we think Brady shouldn't come back next season. After another ugly loss, what is the point of this season for Tom Brady? First and foremost, what was the point of coming out of retirement this season? Seriously? When you have the money of a king, 7 Super Bowl titles, wide recognition as the greatest to ever play the sport, and are the owner of every record there is to have, why keep playing? He even knew that he was coming back to a much inferior team, without Rob Gronkowski and Antonio Brown attacking with him. Maybe it was to prove age is just a number. Maybe it was to wow the world once more. Or maybe it was for the love of the sport itself. We'd believe it if Brady didn't look so miserable on and off the field. He is going through some pretty notorious personal issues back in New York too, which he's earned the right to attend to by all means. But why stick around if you're going to miss 25% of practices? Next up, the risks of coming back again next season. Football is notoriously hard on the body. The sport is filled with retired players with varying levels of brain damage, CTE, wrecked joints, and out-of-shape spines. Brady has already proved he has the best longevity in the sport, and we aren't doubting his mettle, but he's 45. Why risk your health when the sport has a pattern of elderly quarterbacks seriously hurting themselves? We hate to say it, but it could also tarnish his legacy. Even in his early 40s, Brady had a zip in his passes that made it feel like he belonged. This season, he just looks like another quarterback who played one season too many. The weight of his legacy causes fans to expect him to do the impossible each season. They want him to figure out the cracks and overcome his team's shortcomings or inspire them to do better during halftime. But when they came out worse in the second half against the Panthers than they were in the first, it felt like Brady's career may finally be over. Finally, is Brady distracted? Considering his marriage is going through a bit of a rough patch, we'd think so. The New York Post first reported Tom Brady and Gisele Bündchen hired lawyers following a turbulent period in their marriage. The Post has been tracking discord between the two for a while now, supposedly as a result of Brady's decision to unretire from football. The two have been football's sweetheart couple for almost 15 years now, ever since the star quarterback started dating the supermodel. It felt like it was meant to be, But if Brady's trouble on the field was any indication, the two might be going through quite a rough patch. That's a wrap for this video. Thanks for watching. Should Brady finally call it a career, and should Aaron change teams for next season? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button for more NFL updates. We'll see you in the next one.